Welcome to FoodKast. Today we have here with us Matthew Gray, straight from Hawaii. Hi, Matthew. Welcome to FoodKast.
Hey, Ricardo, thank you for having me.
Well, Matthew, tell us a little bit about your story. How you become the foodie you are today.
I'm glad you're asking that question because just this morning I Googled myself and I found out that I'm a pretty interesting guy with a long food background. It began when I was just a little kid. I grew up in a family that came together to celebrate life with food. And when something bad happened, we sat down and we drowned our sorrow with food and we ate food all the time at every one of the events in life that always came up in between the good and the bad. So that's where it all began when I was just a little boy.
Wow, and that was what make you going to become a chef and work in the food industry. And tell me more, why you choose to go to the kitchen. I do understand is your family background and the way you brought up, but is a such a stressful environment. What make you to go and say yes? That's what I want to do.
I didn't notice that it was stressful until I got into it because when I, when I was growing up, when I was just 3 years old, when I was a little teeny boy, I used to push our pet dog Happy up against the counter and step on him like a step stool to see what mom was cooking on the range. And I just became enamored with food and flavor and aromatics and color and plate architecture and all the things that mom was doing when I was a little kid. So it became more of a love thing for me than an endeavor in my mind that I wanted to pursue. It was only later in life, in my 20s, that I decided that's what I was going to do. And I got myself educated, went to the Cordon Bleu in London, and then life took off from there at that point as a professional chef. But a lot led up to that because I was cooking my entire life up until 20 when I went to school.
And w- why you choose go to London to do cordon bleu in London?
I'm an Anglophile. I love England. I love the United Kingdom. I love all of the European Union. And it just seemed like it was going to be another adventure, another fantastically colorful experience for me. So going to London felt very natural and I enjoyed myself. And I was cooking while I was going to school there. And I made a lot of friends and I became enamored more and more with the EU at that time.
Wow. And in that time you spent here in UK, uh, what what is which food or what caught your attention or something different than you had back in the time in US?
Hmm. Well, food-wise, probably the first thing that really caught me was the Indian food in London. And I think a lot of people really gravitate to that because the flavors, especially for an American, uh, are very, very different. The combinations and the spices that waft through the air, and you can smell it from blocks away. You know
Yeah.
those people have been getting whole spices, roasting them, and then grinding them right there. And your nose, if you just allow it, it will bring you forward to the food that is being made down the street.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Did you had curry before I went to UK?
Not genuine curry. So that was the first time it was genuine. I had eaten Indian food in Los Angeles, but it was nothing like the food that I was getting in London from people who had emigrated to the UK.
That's very interesting. Is the same like last year or this year, if I'm not mistaken. They just did a survey in UK, and their national dish is tikka masala.
I know, isn't that wild?
Yeah, they identify themselves as national dish tikka masala. And I thought that blew my mind. And if you go to India, they will not have tikka masala.
Correct.
It's a
Correct.
British invention. and it is wild just to think that. And like the spices, the way we have here in the food culture in Europe, what you took that from Europe when you went back to America?
Primarily getting whole spices was a big part of what I learned about cooking international flavors. You can't ever start with a dried powdered spice. And I just don't think it's going to work. And I think that's what separates a professional from a housewife or a house husband, uh, from the flavors that you can kind of create. But not only the spices, it's also technique, and that's what you learn over the time that you're in the kitchens. So you're learning what to do with flavor, and you're learning how to prepare something. Like, for instance, you could take somebody who has no cooking experience and use the same ingredients as that person, and both of you cook a dish with those same ingredients. And obviously, the person who's trained is going to come up with something fantastic, and the person who doesn't have much experience probably won't.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's sometimes it's difficult, at least in my job, when I have many head chefs working for me, and all of them can come with the same dish. Let's say mashed potato, a different recipe, and then sometimes just the basics. Go to the basics. Majority the head chefs nowadays, I have to say, they are trying too hard to impress, and sometimes they just sometimes I the way I see is like that. A great chef, I find, when they can make some ordinary dish that you have every day fantastic. Not somebody who makes something, like a foam or whatever you want to call, like elastic gelatin, because that's not normal for the ordinary person. So, but if you can do something you eat every day better than anyone, wow, that what blow my mind when I normally go to eat in the restaurants I run. Um, that being said, like, wh- oops, when you went back to America, or even before you went back, culture wise, how was for you? Like, majority of the people when they go abroad, including myself, at some stage you feel homesick, and you look and say, "Oh, I would love to have this or that." Like when I came here, I couldn't find the how they call in America. It's the same. We call it differently in Brazil. It's like the Twix, like the little cakes with the marshmallow inside, marshmallow cream or something like that.
But I think there are a lot of things that I really missed when I was over in Europe, but I've traveled and had traveled prior to that for a number of years, and so I was able to kind of access foods and flavors that I really liked. Before I was living in London and going to school, I was traveling on the road with a few famous rock bands in the merchandising capacity. So I had been traveling for quite a while since I was 17, and I was used to finding flavors that I really enjoyed. But of course, like you say, there is always something that you're going to miss from home, whether it's your mom's stuffed cabbage rolls or spaghetti and meatballs at the corner Italian place down the road, which isn't even Italian, right? They don't eat spaghetti and meatballs in Italy.
They do, and it will
Oh
be
yeah,
polpettone, or it's like a
popatone.
yes. Normally, I remember when I was kid, my grandma making, but like it's a massive bowl, one in the plate, and for kids sometimes they do the small ones that what you can see everywhere here in Ireland, Brazil, or U.S. Nowadays, even in Italy, you will find that. You know,
Do you think you can find it in Italy now because of the Western countries or American people who kind of were doing it before them? Or do you think that that's a traditional old world Italian style dish?
I would say is because of the globalization, the way I would say. Everything got so intertwined that people, the things come back to you, like, and you adapt. Example, pepperoni pizza. That's not, is not actually Italian pizza, it's American.
Right,
So
right.
just last week I was last week, no, this week I was writing a menu for one of our restaurants is opening up. I'm opening a pizza place, and I like to tell stories in my menus. And then normally when I write the name of the dish, I try to catch the attention and description, explain a little bit about the dish. And I call the pepperoni pizza an American pepperoni pizza. And then the general manager and the area manager start to look. I said, "Oh, uh, Ricardo, why did you do that?" I said, "Because actually the Italians they don't do pepperoni. You know, like everything here is wood stone pizza, and then we want to be so authentic, and we put in pepperoni." Or a Hawaiian pizza. And I said Hawaiian, like my grandma start to come out of her grave just because I said that, you know. But that's what people want. So you need to tell the story. So I think it's important that. But going back there, when you were here, and the part of were trying to say to be homesick or something like that, how was it spend the holidays across this side the world?
Well, those were the days before the internet, and
Yes.
it was different. Communication was a lot different then than it is now. So it would rely on good conversation like this, and it would rely on people being together and sharing their hearts and sharing their lives and sharing their flavors all together. So it wasn't people on a screen or long distance cell phone telephone
Yeah.
calls or people playing games on their phone, and it was like real human communication, and that's something that you can really miss if you're not used to connecting with people. And so that's what I love so much about those times. It was pre BC. It was like before COVID, and it was before cell phones, and it was just a really great opportunity.
Like because I see nowadays, at least here in Ireland, we have a very good connection with the Americans. So Independence Day or American Independence Day, uh, we do actually promote in the restaurants. We normally have, the American flags, signature dishes from America, and it is in that sense we have a lot of the American. But like example, in 2 days is coming the Thanksgiving for you, right? So
Right.
for us here, like we didn't observe the this culture like Halloween. We do have in Ireland. Uh, Originally, Halloween came from Ireland, and then just it had the boom in America, and more or less like that the story. But like, how was Thanksgiving for you in to spend here in Europe when for majority of the people it's very weird, and they don't understand what actually Thanksgiving means, or what's the meaning of Thanksgiving here.
Well, me being an American in London back in the day was very interesting to the people I met because I got to bring a lot of our culture and our traditions over to the UK and share that with people who, of course, had heard of it and who had read about it, but who had never experienced it. So it gave me the opportunity to grab all the ingredients and to do my thing in the kitchen and just treat a whole bunch of people every year when I was there and we celebrated Thanksgiving. It gave me a chance to kind of show off all these American Thanksgiving products and foods and flavors. And, that was fun for me. It really was.
Like what I like about cultures in this sense, like even like example, in Brazil, we are the biggest Catholic country in the world by number. But when like my wife, she's Polish, and I have to say, since we I got Polish Christmas, I can't look back. Like last time we went just before COVID, uh, we went for our first Christmas in Brazil, and I'll tell you, I was like, "Oh my god, it's not Christmas anymore." Because the way we do is that we adapt as well for the area we are in Brazil. So São Paulo is not too hot, not too cold. It is okay comparing with the rest of Brazil, north to northeast. But like what we have for Christmas is Uh, we see ourselves in Brazil like more Europeans than Americans. Americans, I mean, like North American, because of our heritage. But I'll tell you something. Now, after I came to Europe and spent the past 16, 17, somewhere like that, the years here, I can see us Brazilians, we are more Americans than actually Europeans. For culture wise, we adopt loads of dishes and traditions from your side. But saying about that in Thanksgiving, could you explain a little bit of the history of Thanksgiving and how you felt, like the difference? Like you lived in New York, Los Angeles, and Hawaii. What's the difference now you feel in the dishes you have across the country? And with your, of course, you're traveling around the world and America and passing many years in different places. What's the biggest difference, let's say, from a New Yorker Thanksgiving to a Hawaiian Thanksgiving?
I think that the primary difference would be the setting and not the food. And besides the setting, it would be the people as well. So the foods remain fairly consistent no matter where you are if you're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving. So it's kind of like the same collection of dishes. It's just a different grouping of people in a different environment. So for me, it's, that standard line of selections of food, but each Thanksgiving is different based on the people that you're spending your time with and the people that you're cooking with and the people that you're toasting and celebrating. So the foods, we can talk about the standard Thanksgiving foods, but really what makes it special is the different people who are involved with you during that time.
What would be the traditional Thanksgiving dinner?
Usually people will have turkey. And turkey is probably a primarily American thing because wild turkeys roam the Northeast. So when the English came here and colonized the United States, the pilgrims, they noticed that there were wild turkeys roaming the lands quite all over the place. Back in the UK, they would eat geese, quite often at celebrations. But in America, there were turkeys running around, and geese were more difficult to locate and to find and to cook. So the turkeys were easy and kind of became established as the go to protein for Thanksgiving. So I don't know how popular turkeys are in the rest of the world, and maybe now more than ever before. Uh, but, it could be just turkey again for a lot of people, or it could be a wonderful celebratory indicator that something good is about to happen because turkey is going to be on the menu.
Yeah, here, like we do have turkey. Normally, turkey is for Christmas. Turkey and ham. So probably you had that when you're here. In UK, it's very traditional as well. It's just turkey ham with stuffing, sage stuffing with your spuds, gravy, like that's Christmas for us. Like I'm saying that because a couple of years ago, we were a couple of years, many years ago now. This stage, I'm skinny, yeah, and I'm a chef. So for my wife's family, they thought I didn't know how to cook. Like or like
Right? How could you possibly be a
yeah,
chef?
yeah,
Don't trust the skinny chef.
yeah. Like, and I say to everyone nowadays, to be a chef is like a football player. The way or football or basketball, like a athlete. Uh, Bigger the chefs is lower they are. Like if you see the top chefs you have around the world now, they are all fit because like to spend hours and hours standing and running around the kitchen, like yourself. So if you're heavy, it would be very difficult, and then like you need to have a lot of stamina to go through. So came here we have Christmas Day, and then we have St. Stephen's Day on 26. So I remember that the biggest thing for us here for Christmas is Christmas dinner, that will be on 24th, and then you have Christmas Day. So we went to Poland. Like, my Polish is not good, so I was sitting there in the sofa, and my wife literally translating. And I thought they were like, for after a couple of years we were going there for Christmas. I thought they were just joking, and they said, "Would you do the Christmas lunch?" I was like, "Yeah, what do you want? You want a plated? You want a buffet style? What do you want?" Like, I start to kind of like just throwing ideas. And then they said, "Oh, plated." I said, "How many courses you want?" And I kept going, playing along. And then I thought it was just a joke. Long story short, I was just giving ideas how I would do a Christmas dinner with what they normally have. So, couple of hours later, that I think was on 22nd, somewhere around before Christmas. So, a couple of hours later, my wife, stepdad, just came back to the house with a couple hours the follow day. Sorry, he came back with a bean bag. They went to the farm to get a turkey. I swear to God, the turkey was the size of a dog. That how big.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
So what I did is the reinterpretation of the turkey and ham. So I got serrano ham. I debone all the turkey, roll in the stuffing,
Uh-huh.
apple stuffing, and literally I just ham, turkey, stuffing, and roll and tie. So oh
That
yes,
sounds
and I
great.
got the bones. Was so big, that turkey. I got the bones, roast, and make a beautiful turkey jus. And I have to say, the reinterpretation of that, since then, they keep talking when they will have again. But it got me about like 2 days to produce that. And that's what I think, like, sometimes the adaptation of each place and each area of everywhere you go for Christmas. Like in Brazil, you have different dishes for Christmas. There are a few things will be staple. Like, we have our turkey. We're gonna have as well the pork thigh. It will be basically like yeah, smoked pork thigh. And few normally we have fresh fruit serving with that, because like Christmas time, we are it's summer, so it needs something fresh. And as well, like, something I don't believe until now, corn didn't cross the ocean much. Like a part of Italy using like the polenta, or the polenta flour there, in Italy. I don't see much corn dishes around here, as we do in Americas. Like, would you use a lot of corn for Thanksgiving or any celebration, or not much?
Uh, Around the holidays, we start to incorporate some of the other
Yeah,
nationalities. So, for instance, the Mexican people will make tamales. And of course, they're using masa, which is
yeah.
made from corn. So that's how that gets incorporated into the typical American diet. So we'll absolutely utilize corn in other kinds of flavors and other kinds of creations. But I want to get back to your reinterpretation of the turkey and the ham. That sounds like what you were able to do is combine like Italian braciole and French cordon bleu, kind of mixture of what you did with those ingredients, and sounds
Oh, it was great.
fantastic.
I have to say, back in the day, in that time, I was working fine dine, and they want to have an Irish dinner. And I look, I said, "No, no, no, you
Yeah.
don't want to have like no offense to the Irish, but the Christmas traditional Irish Christmas would be basically uh, overcook vegetables with roast potato, turkeys. Literally, you put everything in the oven and let cook the, sorry my language, the shit of it." And I look, I said, I don't want to bring that vision of their food, so I reinterpreted them.
Well, you're an artist, I'm an artist, and that's what
Yeah,
chefs do. Other people, they just want to make sure it's dead. They put it in the oven and they just cook
yeah.
the hell out of it. And then they serve it and everyone gets festive in their head. But you and I are able to actually, like you said, reinterpret things, create beautiful plates, architecture, flavors, designs, and so on like that. So we're taking the entire spirit of the food and the gathering and being able to make
Oh
magic,
yes,
right?
I think in a sense, I do not like to uh, s- reinterpret other people's dish or other nationality dishes or traditions because one, I'm not local, and two, sometimes it can cross in a different way. Example, majority of my chefs, majority 95% of my chefs, they are not Irish. They're all foreigners. And there's a traditional dish here. I don't know. In UK, they have similar. They call bacon and cabbage. I don't know if you had that before when you were in UK. It's basically you roast your bacon, mashed potato, steamed cabbage or saute cabbage, and then you put parsley sauce. Parsley sauce, basically, what they do here is milk, corn flour, and parsley. Visually,
Very basic,
yeah, but
but good.
visually is the parsley
Uh-huh.
sauce can be like look like glue. And then some of my chefs, they do not like that, so they don't do they just serve with gravy. But for the locals, they look and said, where's my parsley sauce? And then the way I see is you can't go and say, look, I'm not doing this because me, the chef, I dislike. There are people, they are going there and like the customer are paying. They want to eat what they're happy with. So the way I managed to get the head chefs to do it is I say, look, make a beautiful bechamel sauce and then you put a parsley inside. That's it. And works.
That
And now
works.
is you have more
Yep.
flavor because you have your roux, you have is creamier and like than actually just milk with corn flour, and then the normally people come back for that dish, and that's what we're here for. Sometimes we need to reinterpret it in a way that do not offend people, and that's
Yeah, and also you're giving them familiar flavor and you're giving them the foods that they really love. I mean, one of the things when you were just speaking, I was thinking about the mushy
oh
peas
yes,
that they eat in England. And, you talk about that's kind of a visual treat all by itself. But people have a burning desire to eat that. That becomes one of their favorite things. And so, it takes a great chef who can give the guests, the patrons, exactly what they want, but perhaps a little bit of a different form, but they know that they're getting what it
yes,
is they
yes.
ordered.
It's challenging, and the world is getting so globalized that I really like that. When I came to Ireland 15, 16 years ago, I like I don't know if you had the opportunity to go to São Paulo before, but São Paulo is think about New York or Los Angeles in steroids. Like it's 22 million people in one city, but is the mix of cultures is surreal. Like you can eat anything you want any time of the day, like in New York, and the it's not confusion, but the fusion of the food there. Nowadays, I see few things happening now here in Ireland that in Brazil we had 20 years ago in Sao Paulo, not Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So big cities like that open your eyes in such a difference. Like now living Hawaii, comparing the places you lived before, what do you think how is the food there is so globalized? How is getting on there in Hawaii?
When I first moved here, which was in 93, I couldn't believe just how unsophisticated the food was here. Uh, you couldn't get a baked potato or potato in a
Wow.
jacket,
Yeah.
like you might call it in Ireland. Um, Everything came with steamed white rice because we have a huge Asian population here. And that is the starch of choice. And it's always served with everything, even the most elegant fish or seafood or meat or whatever. You're always going to get a side of white rice. And that's just part of the culture here. So, I had to get over myself because, uh, there's a certain distinction between an educated taste bud and what people might perceive as being very arrogant. And so I had to learn the Hawaiian ways. And over the years since the early to mid '90s when I moved here to now we have actually some world class places. And I've seen that growth, and I've seen the transition from what it was to what it is now. And so, some of the restaurants here can actually compete with some of the nicer restaurants around the country, maybe around the
What
world
kind
as
of
well.
rice you guys use? Like sticky rice or just like a basmati rice? Like, or the ordinary
Oh,
sticky
it's
rice?
definitely sticky rice. It's white sticky rice. And before I moved to Hawaii, the only thing you'd ever use white sticky rice for would be uh, for Japanese food or as a side for Chinese food to put your food on, not to eat all by itself. Here in Hawaii, Ricardo, I'm telling you, when you come here, it'll blow your mind. Everybody has a rice cooker on their counter, and it's always alive and it's always warm, and there's always a bunch of white rice if that's
With
what you want.
flavor or no flavor, the rice? No flavor.
No flavor, plain steamed
Oh,
sticky
Jesus.
white rice. And people just gobble it up. And um, I still can't get used to that. And that's not part of my personal culture, but I have to accept it because that's the way
It's the
everyone else
same
is here.
in Japan. A friend of mine ordered a Caesar salad because she didn't know half of the dishes. So she ordered a Caesar salad, came nice bowl of Caesar salad and a side of rice. And she looks and said, I didn't order that. No, 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 comes with the dish. And then that is such is fun. It's funny to see culture and what actually people see. Like in Brazil, we have a lot of rice. Like the base of the food is rice and beans, but our rice will have flavor. Like you're gonna put like
Right.
you sweat your onions, a little bit garlic, bay leaf. That's traditional rice. It's a pilaf rice.
Right, pilaf rice is
Yeah.
what I grew up with also, learning it on the mainland, but in Hawaii, they don't know from pilaf, and they don't know from flavoring or sautéing the vegetables and the rice itself, or fideo or anything like that to add to it. So, rice here is a singular experience, very unlike what
Wow.
you and I are used
I,
to, for
I I
sure.
think I need to go to Hawaii now and experience the Hawaiian food. What would be the sorry,
You'll
saying on that? What's staple food in Hawaii?
Staple foods here. We have a very, very large population of Asian people here. So a lot of Japanese, a lot of Chinese, Vietnamese, Filipino is huge here as well. That's probably my least favorite cuisine ever
Really?
is Filipino cuisine.
Why?
Yeah. Um, I don't like their flavorings over time. I've been up front and center with Filipino food for a long time since I came here to Hawaii. I don't like, I guess, a lot of the vinegars, the sourness, and organ meats and things like that that just don't fit my style. But it might be more the flavorings and the actual foods themselves. But you do see a lot of it in Hawaii for sure. So staple foods here. You heard of spam. I don't know. Has it reached
Yeah, you
Ireland?
find in some shops, and like the first time I had Span is because I want to know what's the fuss about. Everyone say, "Oh, Span's amazing!" Like Korean
Right.
food, you see a lot that as well. And then when I ate was like in that moment you realize what kind of person you are. If if we spit or you swallow. I didn't know what to do. I look and say, "Oh my god, what's that? What I just put in my mouth?" Uh, I really, no offense. I know there are people love expand is like comfort food for them, but like for me, it was like brutal.
You know, when people come here, they expect to try that or they expect to see that because that's all part of the
Hmm.
whole media related promotion of Hawaii as a destination for travel. And so when I was running the Hawaii food tours for 16 years from 2004 to 2020, that was something that my guests would want to know a little bit about. And I said, "Oh, I'm glad you asked." And then we'd serve them something called spam musubi, which is very similar to spam
Yes.
sushi. So it would be spam sliced, cooked in a teriyaki sauce, wrapped in seaweed over a rice ball. And that's an everyday thing you can get here at all the
Wow.
convenience stores and restaurants
Warm
and
or
so on
cold?
like that. But I had to do it because room temperature. um, So we had to give it to our guests because people expect that. It's kind of a source of fascination. Do you know what I mean? People read about it and people think, oh, like that's the devil's food, and other people from Hawaii think it's great and wonderful. So I just love seeing people's reaction and response to when we brought it out and fed it to them because it was just an experience to
But
see
I have
people
to
go
say,
through
like
that.
you saying in teriyaki sauce probably would be good. Like the only way I tried was straight out of the tin, and I like I said, oh no, no, like it's the same when people back home many years ago we had like a bologna and would be mortadella, Italian sausage, yeah, and that was the working man uh, meat. Was we have a bread in Brazil? It's like a petit pan but bigger, about 100 grams. So
Oh, mhm.
sorry, say again. All right,
No,
all right.
I was just
Yeah,
responding
so
to
it's
that. I
a petit
hadn't heard of
pan,
that.
and
Uh-huh.
they like now in the 2000s when they refurbish this, the central market in Sao Paulo, they start to make that, and instead of putting like just a couple of slices, they start to put a half kilo almost of mortadella inside, and become they glorify again the way we used to eat that, and they start to grill them and like start to salivate. It's really nice. So I think it's people just need to re-glorify span like you said. Now the way you guys eat there for me came uh, a slightly memory of a nigiri, the rice with the like normally it's fish on top with your seaweed. So I start to think, and then you said teriyaki sauce probably would taste good.
Yeah, teriyaki is one of those flavors that I think people love. I mean, us as humans, it's
Yeah.
built into our DNA to enjoy sweet flavors. So, teriyaki has a lot of umami and the sweetness. And so you put that on
Oh
anything, and I
yes,
think people will
definitely,
enjoy.
definitely. Now, to finish off, tell me what will be your Thanksgiving given dinner for this year?
I'll probably, um, I'll probably spatchcock a turkey and make the traditional style turkey, and I'll make an interesting stuffing, probably with a few different kinds of breads
Oh,
along with cornbread. You were asking about
yeah.
corn earlier and whether or not that finds its way into the Thanksgiving meal. And for me, it will because I'll definitely make cornbread, put that in the stuffing. Uh, and then, of course, cranberry sauce is very big here. Has that hit Europe?
Oh, yes. Like normally we have turkey and ham, and you're gonna have a cranberry sauce on the side.
Great, and that's just one of the most delicious things on earth, and it's a very creative experience because it can be super simple. You can just use a little bit of orange zest, a tiny bit of sugar, or you can go crazy with spices and flavorings and black pepper and on and on and on. So there's a lot that you can do with these things, but that will be part of our meal, and I'll probably make some sort of an apple
Ooh,
crumble
yes.
pie for dessert. Um, pretty standard stuff. Uh, and, maybe some other things, whatever kind of like fits the bill, whatever kind of energy I'm in, because I've always got plenty of ingredients here. So it's just going to depend on what I feel like doing. There's nothing really set. Um, so yeah, that's probably what's going to be.
And what are you gonna pair with that to drink? Wine?
Ah, well, yes, definitely. I think Pinot Noir is probably a good choice for roast turkey, and but my favorite, if it was up to me, I'd just drink champagne with everything.
Always good, always good. I'm more like a no,
You
like
can't
you
really
put
go
bubbles in the
wrong.
middle is good, like everything goes
Yeah,
good with bubbles.
exactly. You just asking about wine, and so it just reminded me of the situation that the EU is going through right now with climate change. And the fact that the Burgundy region of France
Oh
is
yes.
suffering big time, and it looks because of climate change, the Burgundy region is not going to be able to be growing grapes much into the future, and that they're going to have to start growing grapes, Burgundy style grapes in southern
Wow.
England. And I found out that a lot of people who are creating Burgundy right now are buying huge swaths of land in the southeast of England to be able to grow grapes because climate change is creating a warmer environment. And Europe is going to have a very, very difficult time, from my understanding, especially uh, the olive oil market, the various different crops like grapes, um, agriculture, the animals like cattle, the tomatoes, the certain style of tomatoes in Italy, the beef in Spain. It's all getting messed up because just a huge amount of those products are feeding the world and supplying the world. And now that climate change is happening, and the EU is so important to the food supply, of interest to me just to watch who's going to come up with some solutions. Hopefully, someone does, because it's affecting, you know, the food market, it
Yes.
affects our health, and it affects the entire
Yeah, no, I
world right
agree
now.
with you. Is being challenging here in Ireland. A good example. Up to the past 2 years, they start to grow corn because here in Ireland, you can't grow corn here. We don't have enough sun. We have enough rain, but it's not warm enough. I used to have a site. I used to plant my own vegetables, and I tried to plant corn because I couldn't find corn. So 2021, I have a very good relationship with the growers, local growers and producers, and one of them came with a case full of corn, and I went wild. I said, I want that, and I started to talk to him, and I came to him, like I said, why are you planting corn? He said, I want to see what happened, and I have about a ton of corn uh, that I plant. And I said, all right, send to me. And I start to do so many dishes with corn that people normally would not have here, and they don't have that culture. The first thing I did was I said, literally just steam the corn with the leaves, everything, and after that you just open to make the cornelot. And they didn't know what cornelot was, and try to explain how it works and how you eat. And it was like I literally had to have a manual to say to people how to eat corn and desserts, everything. That season was really nice to work with, challenging, I have to say, but it was really nice. So yeah, the world is changing. The climate change will have many challenges for us across the globe, not just in Europe, but everywhere in the world will be challenging. The norm will be non-norm anymore. Like there are few things you will not have anymore. Probably you're gonna lose crops of, uh, like people had for centuries wine from France and Italy, and probably that will move to
Right.
places that will be a little bit cooler. Good example like Moldova wine always were okay, but like nowadays with the warming up a little bit the climate, their wine is getting more popular here in Europe. to be honest. So
The entire Champagne region is also going to be affected. So I found out recently that people in the UK are making some beautiful
mm,
sparkling wines, but of course, Champagne in the future might not
yes,
be
it's the same
Champagne any
prosecco.
longer.
Uh, I want to know what they will
Right.
call in England, which area of England will be grown the new sparkling wine, or how they will call that would be funny. But let's see that happening.
I think it's just they're going to call it sparkling wine. And, what really got to
Yeah.
me was I was reading about the Burgundy district and I was reading about, I think that Europe supplies three-quarters of the world's
Whoa.
olive oil. And that got to me also. That really affected me when I learned about that. And it just like that kind of really, really rams it home, that whole energy, because people sometimes think about climate change and they become all political in their head, but the fact of the matter is that something is really happening, and it's going to affect the foods that we eat. And for people like you and I, this is really important, because how are we going to stock our kitchens? How are we going to cook the creations that we want to do? How are we going to put the food on the table that people want to eat, and that's a very
Yes,
important
yes.
factor.
Like something I'm already seeing as a change in a trend is the plant-based movement. And like in the restaurants I run, I know like in the begin 2000s were the vegetarians. Now are the vegans the new vegetarian, let's say. And the meats as well, like bigger the better. So I remember I used to have like 12 ounces ribeye. You would have your 16, 18 ounces T-bone. Like if you put that as a special today, you're gonna sell five or six in the night. That's it. Like 10 years ago, you would sell all night long. So the steaks nowadays, we are reducing the sizes. I think we are driving more to not a fully plant-based diet, but I'm seeing the new trend going close to a Japanese diet, where the meat is literally the cherry in the cake, something small that will just bring your palate together, and the sides need to become the stars. So if you're serving something, you're gonna have more options for people, that the sides would need to be better. And the challenge for now and for us in our trade is how we gonna get chefs qualified to do this job. And for me, I think is the most challenging part would be that, because nowadays the chefs, like back in the day, I remember I had to work like 3 years basically peeling potatoes and learning the basics in the kitchen before it start to go up. Now I have people working 6 months and they say, now I'm a CDP, like, and they said, no, you're not, and that's what the expectation, and they're losing that basic knowledge that I think is so important for chefs, and the long run will be difficult.
All the old world Yeah, I agree. A lot of the old world simplicity is going away. When I was becoming a chef, my first audition at a restaurant where I was going to be cooking once I came back from London to Los Angeles, I was asked to make an omelet. And that was what chefs did in the old days. They used to ask you to make the simplest thing on earth, which was not so simple, right? And that's how they judge whether or not they wanted you in their kitchen. And if you could pull off an omelet for them, then they'd
Yeah.
put you to work peeling potatoes for a
It's the
year.
basics, and nowadays the chefs, they don't have that basis. I think the internet and the things so happening so quick, and in a so fast pace, they think being a chef is the same. Is just, I spent 6 months here, so now I know how to write a menu. A good example today, I got uh, what I got in there. Dessert. I had somebody with all possible allergens in the world for desserts, and the gentleman, he had severe allergen for nuts. Like, one thing I would refuse to serve is somebody with nut allergy. in the kitchen, in the restaurant. Nuts travel in the air. And even when it came the first order, I said, "Look, we have nuts in the kitchen. It's on your own risk if you want to eat that." So in the end, he said, "I wanted something sweet for dessert, but I don't want ice cream." So eat a mess here. The way they do is basically uh, berries, meringue, and berry meringues, coulis, and cream, and you mix all together, and that's it. Eat a mess. I I put
Oh,
in the
sounds great.
restaurants now something I
Uh-huh.
call winter mess for the winter time. So it's a caramel with pecan nuts and meringue, etc., etc. So it's really nice and it's fresh, light, but more wintry. And the gentleman asked for this dish. But since there is nuts, I said I will not serve. He said, "What you can do?" So long story short, I said, "Okay, I have some Oreo biscuits we in the dry store because I make Oreo soil for a base for major the things. So
Uh-huh.
when it go wet, holds on that." So I said, "I can make you a Oreo mess." And then like out of the blue, just bang, done. And then came one of the coming chefs, their training chefs, looking what I was doing. He tastes. I said, "I could be done that. I could do that. That's so simple." And I said, "Yeah, you could do, but first you need to have your 10, 15 years experience to come with something like that so quick. Would you do that if they ask you?" And he got quiet. And he asked me, "How you thought about that?" I said, "Look, I see what I have around in my environment and try to think how I can mix the flavors to make something delicious with something simple." And he came to me and said, "How much did you charge for that?" I said, €7. And he said, "How much cost you?" I said, "Probably a couple of cents." Is And then I just used the
Right,
analogy
right, right.
about there is I read a time ago they had a boat wasn't working and they call an engineer. And the engineer came, looked to the engine, took a hammer out of his bag, and tapped 3 times in the engine and turned it on,
Uh-huh.
and the engine was working. And for weeks, nobody could fix that. And he sent the bill back, and he put there €10,000. And then when the guy saw that and said, "Why I'm paying you €10,000? You just got a hammer and tapped 3 times in the engine." And he said, "Yes, €2 is for the price of the hammer. The other €9,998 is for my experience. If you didn't know, if I didn't know I had to tap 3 times in the exactly spot, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't do that." So it's more or less that because nowadays the chefs just want like that, like I come with ideas and they think is new and they just try too hard, that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, magic happens,
Yes.
and sometimes you have to pay for it. And when someone has the experience, it's like, hey, I went to
Yeah.
school. My palate is educated. My brain is connected. And, people can't believe it sometimes, but really that's a lot of times what you're paying for, right?
Oh yes, like everywhere I go, that's what I say to people. I don't care to pay for food. I don't care. We go to travel, and I would say I spend money because I say my biggest investment is not my hands, not my brain, is my palate. Without my palate, like cooking is not enough anymore. Anyone can cook. My best chef is here, my phone. You know, like back in the day,
Right, right.
I remember when I go to cook, I start to cook. I used to have a booklet in my pocket, and I writing all the recipes I see. I see my head chef cooking across the kitchen. I was seeing what he was putting in and writing down. And later, I just start to made up the quantities to see if I learn, because back in the day, uh, they would ask you like, "How can I do a potato gratin?" Like, if I didn't know, I didn't know. Nowadays, I can ask anyone anyone to cook something, in 10 seconds they will find hundreds of recipes. Is I believe cooking is not enough anymore.
Yeah. People can get the recipes, but they can never turn out, like I was saying at the top of our conversation today. Um, Two people, one educated like you, and another person, same ingredients, you'll have a great end result on your side. The other person with the same ingredients won't know what to do with it, won't know how. And that's the part that you have to learn over time, is the how. The technique is so important,
That's
not
great. Yeah, that's true.
necessarily the
That's
ingredients.
that's true. Matthew, that was great chat to have with you here today. Uh, that was lovely. For your
Thank
time.
you.
And yeah,
I want to say aloha to everybody, and especially you, Ricardo. Thank you so much for having me aboard. It's so much fun. I'm going to come visit you.
thank you very much. Same like here. We're gonna do the same. We'll go to Hawaii. I need to go there, and then you need to do the food tour with us. This was Foodcast with Matthew Gray. If you guys are around Hawaii, please contact him. We'll be down here, all his contact details. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening to Foodcast.